time again today. I'm imagining you're feeling a bit blindsided by this decision on the weekend.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, shocked when we first heard it on Saturday, and disappointed, of course, for our communities. As for the minister's statements about me, I would point out again, she uses no examples of these alleged misstatements. The fact is, I was on your show just recently. You heard what I've had to say, and primarily what I've been speaking about is the fact that this process is not being done right. It's significant portions of my communities, the people that I work for, are being centered out or not allowed to participate and not able to get their questions answered. And that's really all the statements that I have made. So, again, the minister needs to do this process right. Now, of course, if people are intimidating people or anything along those lines that's inappropriate, we condemn that. But we haven't seen it. And I think if you talk to lots of people in our community that have been to these meetings that have happened so far, they've been calm, they've been quiet. I certainly hope if there's been any criminal harassment or threats occurring, the RCMP are investigating it.
Well, can I ask you about that? Because I've got someone saying Jason Nixon was already revving up the anger during QP before they even had the first meetings. He's part of the problem. The second is the RCMP were the ones that suggested it be canceled because residents were being threatened. Have you been in touch with the RCMP? What's being told? What's happening?
I spoke with the RCMP several times over the last since Saturday, but spoke with them again this morning and confirmed for both of my communities, Sundre and Rocky Mountain House, there have been no threats. Certainly, the RCMP in my communities did not ask for meetings to be shut down. And as I talked to the sergeant at Rocky Mountain House this morning, he said that from their perspective, the meetings were going fine. Now there may be something that happened in another community that I don't represent, but that I don't have the same contacts there. Obviously, Danielle. Second, in the legislature, we've been asking questions. That's what we're supposed to do. We've asked the minister questions for over a year and a half, and we actually haven't been able to get any answers from the minister if you watch those types or those questions. And that just goes to the problem. You have a minister who refuses to communicate with the community.
Okay, hang tight, because I want to get a few more responses from you. Jason Nixon is my guest. He is the MLA for this area, Rimbey, Rocky Mountain House, Sundre. If you've got some thoughts on this, 630 is the place to text. You can also give us a call at 403-974-8255. Stay with us. We'll be right back after news on Chorus Radio. Now, lest you guys think that I would be recommending something I would not be prepared to do myself, I seem to recall a period of my history being maybe the most hated person in Alberta. Maybe there was one other. Maybe Alison Redford was more hated than me. But I was certainly felt like I was the most hated person in Alberta. I even had a threat against our constituency offices. Someone posted a sign on the door threatening to blow them up, which I don't know what ultimately happened to that person. But I do know that the RCMP came and did a site assessment of my home and outfitted me with a pager just so I had a panic button in the case something happened. But you know what I did? I did 4 town halls because people were mad at me and they wanted to know why I made the decision that I did to join Jim Prentice's team. You don't go and hide when you make a controversial decision. You have to get out there and you have to communicate it. You can take precautions for sure if there are credible threats, but it doesn't sound like there's credible threats in Sundre. It doesn't sound like there's credible threats in Rocky Mountain House, nor does it sound like there's credible threats in Drayton Valley. This just sort of reeks, I'm sorry to say, of a government trying to manage the outcome, trying to handpick the people who participate in the process because they've already made the decision and the plans are already laid. So you don't end up getting more buy-in by hiding. You have to go out and do your job. That's my basic position on this. Whether or not you're going to agree ultimately on the outcome, you can't shut down public consultation. It's the exact opposite answer. So I've got Jason Nixon on the line, who is the MLA for Rimbey, Rocky Mountain House, Sundre. And let me just put on the table, Jason, a few of the things that she says is the misinformation that is out there. Number one, to counteract the misinformation, she says the proposal and supporting information is all available online, that she's heard people saying no details are available, but they are. She says the Regional Advisory Council recommended conservation of the Bighorn. So this comes from the Regional Advisory Council. Trails are not being closed is the third point. Random camping is still going to be allowed. That's the fourth point. Industry will not be shut down and no jobs will be lost. That'll be the fifth point. And number 6, the Bighorn will not become an expensive tourist attraction, and our proposal does not include government-funded facilities for foreign tourists. So she's putting out information that she's implying, I think, coming from you, is giving the alternative view. Did anything that she wrote in this letter, is there anything in this letter that you want to respond to?
Yeah, a couple of things. I mean, first, that all the details are out there in the plan that she has put online. That's not true. And if you spend any time reading it and then interacting with the community or the stakeholders that would have to actually implement this, you'll know that's not true. And in fact, the government officials have told our community those details are to come later, that this is just basically the parameters of where the zones would be. So that's the first thing. Second, that the Regional Advisory Council, yes, I do agree, recommended conservation of the Bighorn, something that all of us agree with. In fact, the Bighorn area is already being conserved through a PLU zones at the moment, so nobody has called for there not to be environmental protections of this great area in our backyard. What the Regional Advisory Council did not call for was provincial parks, as far as we're aware. But further that, what we've been pointing out is that there's a full regional plan that's supposed to be taking place, and all of a sudden the government has just taken one section of that region and tried to ram it through in a very accelerated period of time. And, I think those would be the two biggest areas there. On the oil and gas side, there's the counties have been asking a lot of questions about what the minister's words mean, and they haven't been clarified. So it does say that existing activity will continue. The concern then becomes about what happens to future activity, and then there was also some stuff sent out in November basically shutting down any new lease activity inside the area. And according to Brazeau County, they're a little bit worried at this moment about the gas that was intended for electricity generation around Brazeau, up in that area, seems to be not going to be able to go forward from their perspective. They may be wrong, but they're trying to get an answer to that question. And MLA Cam Westhead from Cochrane at the time said, "Oh, don't worry, we're just going to do directional drilling," to which then CAP responded that what he was saying was not actually physically possible. So again, asking questions is not spreading misinformation. It's what, as you know, Danielle, it's what we do on behalf of the people we represent.
I got Tom saying, I understand cattle grazing will also be affected if the Bighorn is handed over to parks. We've talked about forestry impacts, drilling impacts. What about cattle?
My understanding is that cattle grazing, in the current plan would not be impacted. But we would like to solidify and understand exactly how leases and grazing allotments will be handled going forward. So what they've said is existing people would be allowed to continue the activity around cattle grazing that they do, but what happens when they transfer this to family members or they go to sell their leases, which is a legitimate question. We still haven't been able to get an answer on it.
All right. What do you think should happen now?
As I've always said, we should be following the land use framework process all the way properly. There's no need to rush this through. I think you're seeing, and hearing from communities that this is just not working. They're not getting a chance to participate in, and we can't accept a consultation that is not actually taking place with the public. So, at this moment, I think the minister should reinstate the public meetings. I would invite her to come, as I have many times, to Rocky Mountain House for Sundry with me. I'd be happy, even though we disagree on some of these issues, to stand on the stage with her and condemn any intimidation and make sure and make it clear it should be respectful. But we need to talk to our communities. And, I think, Danielle, you're exactly right. Having in-person meetings, it actually humanizes the situation more. Online is a terrible place to have a conversation that is emotional. And again, these meetings were calm, well attended, and I think that it's very important that we consult the public.
And for those of you who have not met Jason Nixon, he's about 6'4" and a big guy. I'd feel very, very confident with him standing beside me, and that would be a perfect resolution here, is if you held these bipartisan consultations. I think it's a